generalizing. Nobody loves me. Everybody hates me. Those absolutes, I always mess up when I give a presentation. Those 3 words help me know that that's the Schlitty committee in telling me nonsense. All or nothing thinking is common. I did a great presentation or I goofed. Not like, yeah, some parts were good. There was some other stuff I can do better next time. Same as the black and white. We do that with people. You know, I just love Jim. I love your agency, and you know, it's the best. And then Brian's like, I heard him say no bankruptcy once, and I'm like, darn them, I hate them now, or something. And then these guys got together and like, oh no, we totally understand each other now. And it became like a relationship and a collaboration. We don't have to do that with everything, if it's good or bad. Do you know what the serenity prayer is? So it's something about the courage to know the difference between things you can control and not control, and the wisdom.
So it's not courage to know the difference.
You're right.
Wisdom.
The wisdom to know the difference, and then the courage to do it.
The courage, the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. The courage to change the things I can. And the wisdom to know the difference.
Okay, so how does that relate to that? Do you have a problem in your life? Okay? No. Then don't worry. Great, let's pick that one. I don't know if it's a problem or not. I mean, the plane could crash or not. Can we do anything about it? Don't worry. Can you do something about it? Then go do that. Drive home. That's more dangerous. Statistically. This infographic to me does what the serenity prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. All right, so right there, can't do something about it. And that helps to be able to break down that, like, I'm just worried. Why? I don't know. Why? Well, something's wrong. And that anxiety is so common and so correlated. We're going to skip this. We had a bunch of activities planned, but this has to do, has anyone ever played a Big Wind Blows? It has to do with, like, we have a lot in common and we run around in a circle. And if you want to do stuff like that in peer training, you know, maybe we'll develop one together and do them. Here's the 5 things that actually help that I asked you to, if you took one screenshot, this is your boo right here. So people come to us and are like, I'm in so much pain. I need help. What can I do? And then we're like, well, tell us about your childhood or your trauma or something. No, not that. This is the plan. We recommend you do get into counseling with a gambling-informed counselor. They don't have to know every single thing about gambling, but they should have a 30-hour class, some experience. Hopefully they're certified. Hopefully they have like a master's level, that they're licensed and able to handle a lot of the grief and trauma and co-occurring disorders, and they can assess and diagnose, because we don't do that. And hopefully it's a counselor that they like and enjoy going to. Do something for your recovery every day. Does that mean go to a meeting every day? 90 and 90, or you failed? That's what we were told. Oh, you had the flu and you didn't go?
Must not want it bad enough.
Nope, you're not even trying. I had the flu. I don't want everyone to get sick. Well, you went to the casino when you had the flu, didn't you? I did. So there's lots of options. You can listen to a podcast. You can go for a walk. You can do yoga. You could do some writing. You could read some books about recovery. It doesn't even have to be gambling related, but specifically make it something that's related to your quality of life. It could be organizing your space so you enjoy doing your homework for your GA class thing later. Firm money barriers are both in the beginning the most important and the hardest to execute. And we often put our people, like our family members and our affected others and loved ones who have suffered under our gambling consequences by their own financial insecurity, in charge of our money. And that creates a dual role for them. There's a lot to say about money barriers that peers should be trained on. There's a lot of options of things we can do that we'll go through quickly. Involve your family, and by family we mean your people of choice. That can be, do y'all know what relationship anarchy is? Have you ever heard of that? It has a lot to do with like the sex positive community, but it can be a model for relationships with everyone. So like Brian and I can live in a box of being Voices of Problem Gambling Recovery employees. We can also be people in long-term gambling recovery together. We're also interested in eating protein and working out. Bye, thank you. So we can share those boxes, and the deal is that when people share those parts of their life, there's generally an agreement that both people want to be in that box together. If Brian thinks of me as someone he needs to loan money to, that's probably not a box we should share, right? Like that becomes something that should be outside of it. And if I'm thinking that's different than he does, that becomes a problem. So when families involved, they need to know their role and they need to get educated. Don't go more than 72 hours, we found is the right number, without speaking with someone, and we mean with like no holds barred about your gambling. I was activated, gambling happened, gambling almost happened, I'm feeling like ending my life, I'm gonna do it in this way, stuff like that. That someone that's accessible, not 9 to 5 and only by appointment, that's a tough thing with peers, is we'll kind of need to be on call in real time, we believe. Can you scan this and save it to your phones, please? I would love to be able to walk everyone through it because it's incredibly helpful and something that we think should be offered to anyone struggling with gambling challenges. But Christina Cook from the Broke Girls Society, which is an online community primarily for female identifying folks with gambling challenges, put it together for a group we hang out with that are folks with lived experience that have podcasts. And she and Brian currently have a new podcast coming out. And she updates it whenever there's a new tool for financial management or an app you can use or a podcast that's helpful. So please save it to your phone desktop and pull it up when people are like, I want to find a meeting. You'll have all the meetings, Smart Recovery, Recovery Road Online, GA. These are what we talked about with the glass slipper, the different programs that are available. Secular sobriety is like a 12-step program, but there's no God part to it. Quick tip, if people are having trouble with the spirituality component to it, substitute in the 12 steps the word truth. All right, came to believe truth could restore me to sanity. Some people are going to have trouble with the spiritual component. Financial barriers, these are what we could recommend as just the very basics. If you got out of cocaine addiction treatment and came home to your house and there were mounds of cocaine on every horizontal surface, that'd be kind of hard, huh? Yeah? If Jeremy said yesterday something about chocolate chip cookies, that accessibility, if there's chocolate chip cookie right there in front of you, you're going to eventually eat it. Because we have process disorders and cash is our activator, it's going to be hard for us to live in a world with money until we get those resilience and tool use around. So until then, it's recommended we not have the way of gambling we used to have. And if people gambled online and used crypto and transferring and stuff, there's tools for that. We'll teach it in peer classes, but you can do stuff like if there's an ATM at your casino, have yourself blocked from using that kind of ATM. You can do TrueLink or one of the prepaid credit cards. They also make them for like kids and teenagers. And then there's a monitoring system where an administrator can say, don't use it after 8 p.m. if you typically gamble at 10. And it's controlled by the person with the gambling. You can have a little lockbox or a little cash register thing you buy on TikTok that you slide cash into. If you're a server that gets a lot of cash, that's very activating. You can have a financial barriers person. Mine was my mom. She now has dementia, and I'm doing better with it. My ex-husband helps me with investments and has a sense of my bigger chunks of money and that they're safe, but I try not to have access to more than like one paycheck. So if it decides to come back, it's not gonna destroy my life. It's gonna make me have a lesson. You can get a payee, which is sort of the end of the line. This is typically people that have SSI or SSD, and they make sure your rent is paid, your phone, your electric, then they give you your allowance, though we're grown adults, so your discretionary money. It's difficult to get off having a payee once you get one if you're on SSI, so please be well informed before you recommend that. Also very successful. It's like having a free personal accountant, or it's like $50 a month. That's what TrueLink's dashboard looks like. You can flip a switch for cash withdrawals. So within my boundaries that I've onboarded people, you are welcome to text me between 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. on these days. I will flip a switch to have cash withdrawals allowed for whatever amount you want. This was before Brian told me to stop doing it. Go to a yard sale, buy a funny lamp, send me a picture of shaking hands with the people with the $20 lamp. Then text me to turn it back off, because it's not my job. You need to have self-efficacy, and I'll turn it back off. Does that make them feel safe? Does that give them agency? Are we treating them as a grown adult that has access to their own money? It looks just like a Visa card. So they don't particularly want to identify with the recovery community, like they haven't been very supportive and stuff. But we've found some success with it. They even have like that. I mean, there's a lot there. It's just friction. It's never going to be watertight, the financial barriers. We're going to have the rest of our lives to figure out ways to get to money, so let's just put some space in between. We're going to help practice this in real time as the peers. We're going to help have those protective factors go in, that we're having ballet class to go to and friends and feeling good about career. And we're getting rid of the risk factors like poverty, like being exposed to domestic harm because we're with someone that enables us to have the gambling be supported even though there's emotional or physical or sexual violence. These are videos. They're really good. That bag of marbles is a really fun one for when we say cognitive distortions. Basically, I was today years old when I realized that your chances of winning don't get better the more you play. I mean, in theory, yeah, but the way they show it is like there's a white marble and then a bag of red marbles. The white marble doesn't, like when you get a red one, it doesn't stay out of the bag. It goes back in the bag. So it's a really nice visual for when people say, I think if I just play long enough, I'm gonna win. And any kind of tool we do to correct that unhelpful thinking is useful, even just stuff like that. Skipping, you know this, right? Time, money, accessibility. You know that. That's a great video. It's a couple minutes long. These cats in Canada say there's more to the story than just dopamine. It has a lot more to do with the reward center in the brain. But this like 2-minute video talks about that the potato chips, once I start, I can't stop. It's because our brake pedal gets stuck. There's no brakes. Or, I mean, our accelerator pedal gets stuck. And that has to do with the ventral striatum, that it's like looping. So we want to not activate people by showing imagery. We're going to show imagery if we have time. Are you interested in seeing some of the trends that are coming in gambling? Okay, we'll see if we have time. You know about that. Hey, here's a really fun thing. Take a picture of it, please, and go look it up. It means a lot to me. I do whole workshops on it. When Dr. Whelan was talking about being a concierge and having the peer experience be akin to hospitality, that someone goes like, we're glad you're here. He said they write personal letters to people, and that's improved their people showing up for their first intake appointment up into the 70s and 80%. It's phenomenal. So I've always, when I come from the corporate world, thought when you have a job interview, you should send, I always called it a $5 card, not one of the ones that you buy at Dollar Tree that are 10 to a pack. Go get the one with the thick paper and maybe some texture and write a handwritten note with something specific about the interview. Still, people love to get a letter in the mail that's handwritten, and that has improved. I mean, how hard is that? It's a stamp and like 20 minutes, and it gets people there because it's concierge hospitality service. This guy, oh, I don't know, it's in the references, David Rock, studied the decisions people made when they stay in a hotel like this, and we run out of brain power, and especially at the end of the day, it's harder to say no. We can't make decisions as well. We get depleted. And so we want to look at what our travelers are going through to help them not have to be so kind of traumatized, like lowercase t, not to minimize their trauma. But this is what my life has been like that contributed to my gambling. And so SCARF is an acronym that my status, I didn't feel valuable. My brother got all the attention. I never knew what was going to happen certainty-wise because my mother had mental illness and she behaved very erratically. My dad may or may not be home, avoiding coming home at work. I didn't feel like I had autonomy over my choices. I didn't have clothes that fit because I was overweight. I didn't get to be in sports or things after school. Just all those kind of things, but especially this relatedness of I'm welcome, wanted, and needed, and that's where 12-step really nails it. Come to our barbecue. I'll be your sponsor. There's a retreat. You're the most important person in the room when you're new. We don't get that as much in Smart Recovery. It's much more secular but tool-based. So to answer your question about being adjunct peer services to community recovery organizations, Brian and I both recommend, if possible, that people consider doing Gamblers Anonymous and something very relational, as well as something like Smart Recovery that we are going to switch over to in a moment. And are things fair? And by being treated fairly. If I heard Brian get an upgrade as we checked in and I didn't, do you know why that is? It's because I'm unlovable. Can apply it to anything. Does someone else have a piece of the pie that's bigger than mine? And we often hear that from people with gambling of, I just don't have my needs met. I need more. I want to be able to treat other people well, but I don't have enough. So this kind of explains when we talk about trauma that it doesn't necessarily mean the really, really bad abuse that people go through. It's more of kind of like a persistent slow burn, and what am I experiencing that's going to activate my gambling from these. Intersectionality is something that very much affects a lot of our population because we know that there's a disproportionate impact on individuals who are BIPOC, young, old, veterans, disabled, neurodivergent, and just like regular old folks that are very able and privileged still struggle with it. But the amount of struggle that comes with having more than one of those contributes to the needs they're going to have with peers to be welcome, wanted, and needed in having a relational experience. So if you're poor and you make $23,000 a year like we do in Oregon, and you're in a rural area, and you have a high school education that could hold you back in having a well-paying job, and it's difficult for you to express yourself. And I mean, gosh, we all struggle with body image and just, am I pretty enough to get the privilege? My partner is a beautiful person. And if we like walk into like a play or something, people stop talking. Like it's like just being around it is like, what is going on here? I had no idea, but I always suspected that I didn't belong because I'm not pretty, and it really impacted my self-esteem and stuff. And so when you combine this with stuff like health things, like being in physical pain or being neurodivergent or having, has anyone had like a knee replacement or back pain or something that you just hurt all the time? I mean, they found that especially with older adults, they're gambling because they're in physical pain. They're also lonely and have time on their hands, and we pull up shuttles to drive them to a casino so it's accessible. So they've got all that going on, let alone having some kind of like history of racial inequality and things that a lot of people go through. That is going to add to the spoons that they go through. Do you know about spoons? This is something that comes from like the lupus, fibromyalgia, folks that experience chronic pain. And the idea is, I don't know why it's called spoons, but like, let's say that most people get 10 spoons a day, and things you do cost a certain amount of spoons. So for me, I get about 6. Since I had COVID, I'm a little more limited, and I'm getting older and health stuff. And so if I wake up in the morning and it's Thursday, I have to bring my garbage can in, and that's noisy, and it costs me a couple spoons to just experience that exposure. Then I realize my internet's out, and I can't start work until I call the internet provider. Has anyone been through that where you're on hold for an hour, and by the time you don't get your internet fixed, you're like, I think I'm just gonna call it a day. Like, I don't have anything left. It costs me those spoons. Well, then I gotta run a quick errand. I'm just gonna run to the post office, no big whoop. That's a hard errand for me, to just go navigate having an address in the box and it's wrapped properly, and I'm waiting in line and people are coughing behind me and stuff. So that's just like my regular morning on any day. Never mind that when we're in recovery, we also need to figure out what meetings we're going to, or going to a new counselor, or calling a peer, and we have our therapy homework, and then there's all this other stuff of paying down our debt and our restitution and getting our G2s together for gambling. And if you add on top of that the intersectionality, there's gonna be a lot more spoon cost. And we're gonna have to like look at that if when we say go to 90 meetings in 90 days, if somebody figures out Zoom and hops on to a meeting for 10 minutes and just tries, that is amazing. That is not a fail. And we don't wanna be like falsely positive, but it's amazing. Hi.
Hi. I was just gonna say, because I've done some digging into this, and they say that the only thing that replaces spoons, anybody want to take a guess? The only thing that replaces the spoons that we use. So Kitty was talking about having 6 spoons a day, but she's got expenditures of like 8 different spoons. She's at a negative 2 spoon deficit. Mm-hmm. How does she replace those spoons? How does she get back to good? What's that?
Self-care.
Self-care?
Something pretty
Connection? Okay. Rest. The only thing that replaces spoons is not needing the spoons. So if you have a day where you're using 8 spoons on a 6-spoon budget, and then the next day you only use 4 spoons, you're gonna feel tired, but it's manageable. If you are every single day using 8 spoons on a 6-spoon budget, after 3 days, you have lost an entire day's worth of spoons. You need an entire day of no spoons to get back to a place of feeling reasonable.
Yeah, you have to borrow from them, thank you.
You have to borrow from tomorrow.
Yeah.
So.
And we got to watch out from that, like encouraging people to be motivated to do recovery activities versus just shut her down and recover. I'm sorry this is taking so long. Do you want to get to tools right away? Yeah?
I mean, I'd like to get to tools.
Okay, 2 more minutes.
Yeah.
Who knows what rejection sensitivity syndrome is? Do your feelings get hurt easy? Mine do. Yeah, a lot of our clients do. And they are struggling enough to give up the gambling because that's a very important love relationship that meets a lot of needs for them. And there's reasons that they're not going to want to give up the gambling. And so it's almost like they're kind of looking for a validation of, well, I tried peer mentor, but she hurt my feelings and was judging to me and stuff. But particularly when people have rejection sensitivity syndrome, which a lot of people who have ADHD or neurodivergence, like many other categories, will tend to have that when they get their feelings hurt. So I wanted to give you this analogy I saw of what it's like. Because I've had dozens of thousands of rejections, more so than one would expect from people that have led different lives, I'm more like this. I don't have this covering. And so if you say, okay, well, dinner's over, good seeing ya, and they're gonna go have their hotline meeting, it turned out, instead of hanging out, that's like crushing. I don't wanna get orange juice everywhere, but I don't have the protective cover. Whereas this, it's like, oh, okay, they got stuff to do, or they've got plans, or off they go, and it doesn't hurt it. And it doesn't mean that we're supposed to say, toughen up, buttercup, or it's not all about you or something. It's to realize there's not gonna be a thick skin on this one. So anything we can do to make it so we're not creating reason to make the orange juice. This is the meeting I wanted, the environment I wanted to be able to go. Did anyone have this environment? Is this what your clinics are like? Okay, just like, woo, fun, pretty, cool. It was more like that. Those guys were really nice to me in the church basements, you know, when they weren't yelling and arguing and making just kidding jokes that confused me and stuff. Those were actually Teamsters, but that's what meetings felt like. Those are in your handouts, read them. Those are in your handouts. We talked about that we're going to be exposed to activators, and so people can both tell us, I don't want you to use that word, and we could also say, let's work on it. It doesn't have to be like a bullet coming out of a gun when you hear that word. It can be other things. I'm going to tell you some words I don't use. Normally I would slow down and have a long conversation about it. I don't identify as an addict, and I think it's pejorative. I'm lots of other things, and I'm sorry it says failing. You're not failing, but please decide if that's useful. If that's how people identify and it's helpful to them and they've been given choices of other words, by all means use it. I wasn't dirty. I didn't get clean. I had a neurochemical imbalance in my brain that I'm in remission from. So if you say, how long have you been clean? I kind of don't really appreciate that. I'm not a problem gambler. I'm someone that had gambling challenges that's in remission. When gambling happens, didn't goof up or anything a little more vernacular. I just had a recurrence of my symptoms. We talked about clean date or abstinence date. And it's more like, how long have I been working on my recovery? And that was December 2011.
I have quite a bit of trouble with the idea of a word like addict
Addict?
not being used.
Mm-hmm.
Because in my practice, I found that when people understood, had insight into the origin of that word
Mm-hmm.
and how it applies to them and why it is useful in their recovery planning,
Mm-hmm.
that they could then hear other people use the word addict, but they knew what it really meant, the derivation of it, of being spoken over and your willpower being removed from you, which is the origin of the word. And I found that these stigmatized words, when used in a therapeutic relationship, could become very useful tools.
They can. And I agree emphatically that it's kind of like, you know, I can call you my, you know, what would I say?
Emotional support president? No.
Yeah, exactly. Like, is that condescending to be like, this is my emotional support president? He's like, I'm not your pet. But we have a relationship, I hope, where he's like, oh no, I get it. It's like, that's one of the roles we can play, is just being there for each other. And same with, like, you know, one of my supervisors used to be like, you're a crackhead, he would say to us, you know, like a term of endearment. And especially when we're in pre-contemplation and there's like, I don't have a gambling problem, you're my problem. And we start introducing like, no, here's what gambling addiction is. Here's what being an addict is. That psychosocial education of where those words come from are especially helpful. I think I'm saying more down the road, I want to identify with other things than being an addict. And so it's always a dialogue that's specific to the people, the what stage they're at, the what they prefer, how it affects stigma, how much room there is in the press for them to say individuals who identify as having problem gambling disorder takes up a lot more footprint in their press than addict. And we can talk about it all day and we can't, but it's such a good conversation to have of just whether it's serving a purpose or not. Same as saying someone, I accused Ronselman last night of being an enabler and codependent. I was like, is that helpful to call people that? So it was more like, you know, is it helpful to give people money when they have compulsive shopping? Is that creating self-efficacy?
Mm-hmm. Also, through the peer lens, because that's what this talk is about, right? Is being peers. You can simultaneously have dialogue that is sensitive, that is appropriate in a more kind of clinical fashion, while not betraying your own sense of recovery, right? So if you identify as somebody who is an addict, we're not telling you that you have to change your personal dialogue. What we're saying is, let's be mindful of the terms that we're using and whether or not people are going to find them valuable. For myself, I identify as a person in long-term recovery. If I have somebody telling me, no, you're an addict, I'm gonna shut down. There's just no winning me over there. And so it's that ambivalence, it's that recognizing that like, okay, I can make room for the fact that I don't know everything about this, while also having some pretty strong foundational values of my own recovery. That's more what this language discussion is about, is how do we come at it a little bit more neutrally to start with until we learn about people's values and what they're willing to kind of take on in that discussion. Does that make sense? And largely talking from like a peer standpoint. So, all right, y'all. Promise some tools. This one is probably my favorite tool. I probably use it a dozen times a day. Kitty, would you agree?
In my mind, like several times an hour. Mm-hmm.
So, this tool is, it comes from Smart Recovery, which is a CBT approach to recovery. So it's not claiming to be the therapeutic model. It's saying that the tools within it were developed with CBT in mind, right? So I am not a cognitive behavioral therapist. I am a facilitator of CBT skills and tools, right? And this is one of them. Now, there's an example up there. However, whenever I'm introducing this one, I like to do something that most people can relate to. So how many people here have been cut off in traffic before? Yeah?
Because I'm unlovable.
It's because you're unlovable? Mm-hmm. Oof. So What sorts of feelings come up for people when they get cut off in traffic? Anger. Certainly. What else?
I
Revenge.
usually, oh, I'm sorry.
Vengeance, you okay? Yeah.
Usually, it automatically comes to my mind, having been a teacher for so long.
Sure.
Who in the world taught that person to drive?
Okay. Yeah. Now we're getting some thoughts, right? These are like complex thoughts that come from a bunch of experience that's educating the way that we perceive things, right? So does anybody experience fear when they're cut off in traffic? There's a statement to be made that a lot of times anger is a secondary emotion related to fear, right? You are driving a multiple 1,000-pound piece of steel around, and then another one comes and cuts you off. Why wouldn't we be a little bit nervous? So fear, anger, vengeance. What other emotions can come up? Or do we think we've pretty much covered it? No wrong answers. Okay, what sorts of behaviors come up? What do we do? What actions do we take when we're cut off in traffic?
Horn comes to mind.
Horn? Certainly. Okay,
Because they may not saw you.
sure. Gestures, right? Freeing the birds. What else?
Freeing the birds.
Go around, jump in front of them, cut them off.
Oh, yeah. Speaking specifically to the
Whoa.
vengeance, right? Like, yeah.
Are we getting to road rage now?
So, right. So these are the behaviors, these are the consequential feelings and behaviors that come from that. Now, usually associated with those are some thoughts. And typically they're kind of unwelcome thoughts or unhelpful beliefs. What are some of the beliefs that come up when we get cut off in traffic? No wrong answers. What happens to you? What thoughts run through your head? I heard I'm unlovable.
Well, they think they're better than me, that they're more important, they have
more
somewhere to be that matters more than where I have to be. And they're bullying me.
They're bullying.
They don't care about the safety of others.
They don't care about the safety of others. What else? They're an idiot. Or some other thing that might have to do with some more vulgar gestures, right? Like insert expletive here. Yes, right.
They're not paying attention.
They're not paying attention.
It's healthy.
The other thing is, how can I affect retribution?
Oh, how can I get them back? They just scared and then angered me. What can I do?
Call my buddy, it's on the state police force.
I mean, look, like, I'm only 5'10", but in a car, because I have short legs, in a car, I look monstrous, right? So the right scowl, ooh, I've got some fear. I've got some fear capabilities here, right? Big beard, oh, I can do some damage. Okay, now that we've been able to have some fun with those beliefs, let's go backwards. Let's dispute them. Now that we've been able to identify that these beliefs are associated with some feelings, we can't do much about the feelings. The feelings are what they are. But if we were to start disputing some of those beliefs, I'm seeing a hand point towards
Well,
Marlene.
Marlene was like, maybe they weren't paying attention.
Maybe they weren't paying attention. Very helpful belief, yes. It's a great dispute. Do better at non-helpful beliefs, okay? Okay, all right. So think back to your answers, right? He's an idiot. Can you dispute that at all?
Could have been not paying attention.
Could have not been paying attention.
Spilled his coffee or something.
Sure, right.
Distracted.
Distracted.
Child was crying, sick.
Well, look at the car and see what kind of person drives that car.
Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah.
Meaning whether it's beat up or whether,
Well, it could be either, as I said. They think they're a really important person because they just bought this new
Fancy.
Audi whatever.
They could be
Or
self-important.
there's somebody who can barely drive the car because the front end is not aligned and it's taking all of their attention.
Well,
Okay.
they could be reading the newspaper and turning the page.
Scrolling through TikTok on their mounted phone, right? They could be just
Playing
scrolling TikTok.
Pokemon Go. As they
Playing
write.
Pokemon
No
Go.
one would do that.
Yes, I am a passenger. I am a passenger, yes. Okay, so regarding the most common one that I come up with, I'm just gonna give you the answer here. I don't know. I don't know for sure. maybe this person is an idiot, but is that helping me right now? Did that help me in those 5 seconds of being cut off? Not really, and I don't know it for sure, right? Are they inconsiderate? I don't know. How was my place in the road? Was I hugging a blind spot? Did I maybe not be aware of my position in the road and therefore, I don't know. I don't know. It's a little hard to look back. Now, is anybody familiar with philosophical razors? So we mentioned Occam's razor, which
Hanlon's
is
razor.
the simplest explanation is usually the right one, right? There's also Hanlon's razor, which says never attribute to malice what can be adequately explained with incompetence. Now, incompetence can be exchanged for a couple of different things, right? It could just be the not knowing. I'm sorry, I didn't know you were there. How many times have you ever had your foot stepped on? And you're like, ow! And they're like, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Okay, that makes a lot more sense than that they stomped on it because they hate me and I'm unlovable. So if we are able to challenge some of these beliefs and say, do I know that for sure, much to what Kitty was talking about earlier, right? Is it accurate? Is it truly accurate? Or is there room to implement? I don't know that for sure. We don't have to dispute or disprove every argument or every belief. We could just start by poking some holes in them. And if we can poke some holes and create enough doubt to get rid of that absolute thinking, then we can start being a little bit more open to effective change, both in our thoughts, right, which we've already started doing with that dispute, but also in our behaviors. What are some things I can do to prevent this from happening in the future or better responding to it? So now that you've all done the work, what's going to happen the next time you're cut off in traffic? Or how can you work to avoid that happening?
Figure out a gesture to ask them how their day is going.
Oh, okay. Some substitutive language. Please, please. Okay. So being a little bit more
Kinda
gracious with the
sarcastically,
road.
go. No, really, go ahead. You're so important.
Okay, so that might be helpful with like if you get cut off again, but are there things that you can do, and I'm looking for answers, to maybe avoid it from happening in the future?
Give some more space between you and the car.
You might need to be more observant.
Be a little bit more
The
observant?
other be more of a defensive driver.
Sure, right. Take on some more
To be-
defensive
be
driving
able to
habits.
see what's going on around you.
But
I
like I'm
could-
already late for work.
Why am I
How-
late for work? Do I need the dopamine?
Right. Because
Could
that
I
sense
leave
of urgency
earlier so it
fuels
doesn't
me.
matter?
Right. All right. So do we kind of see where we're going here? Now, the thing is that a lot of times, once we've done this for a little while, once we've got it practiced, and by the way, one thing that I kind of invite my people to do is to use this in smaller moments. Don't wait for a gambling activator to show up to try this. Try it when you stub your toe, right? Try it when you think to. If you think of something half an hour after the fact and it's like, oh, that would have been a reasonable time to do the ABC, great. Let's do it then. Because the more that we can practice it in these kind of like non-crisis moments, the better prepared it is when we need it. I kind of like to think of it as going to the gym, right? I go to the gym to prepare my muscles for when they're really needed. Going to the gym is just going to the gym. But you can use those muscles later on for things that are in more need. Any thoughts on this? Any questions so far? It's because I'm doing so good at this.
You have
All right.
14 minutes.
I have 14 minutes. Okay. So now if we were to take a look at some more specific things to gambling, right? This is an example. What are some other things that you all have heard from people looking for services that they say about their gambling or their relationship to gambling? What are some things you've heard?
You mean similar to the belief?
Yeah, what are some unhelpful beliefs that you know for a fact that they're just not super helpful? Yes.
I know a lot of people who gamble a whole lot more than I do.
So could be worse, right? Uh-huh. I've also heard at least it's not meth. Right? These are beliefs. These are things that people tell themselves. Now, if we were to try to dispute that, not that we are going to invalidate their experiences, but what sort of direction would you like people to come to? What would be the dispute to some of those? So how about yours? How about the idea, so many more people do it more than I do? Can we dispute that?
Well, I am a cognitive behavioral therapist.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
I'm kind of gathering that, yeah. Mhm.
So I would, as a matter of fact, a long time. But the first thing we would do is check the validity of that statement. And giving the person the feedback and asking them to generate what a real gambler is like.
Sure, yeah.
And how come they're not one.
Right.
In other words, we're looking at the automatic thoughts in order to get to the schema and CBT terms.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on kind of a dispute for that? There are people who gamble so much more than I do. It's all relevant, all relative? All, uh-huh.
I always tell people it's about, what you're gambling, what's the real consequence of it?
Yeah.
Relevant.
I'm not here to help all those other people. I'm here to work with you and the harm that you've experienced. Right? And just because somebody might gamble more dollars or more frequently doesn't immediately mean that they're going to experience more harm. Right? Because it is relative. Cool. Okay, just got a couple more of these, but I again want to present the idea. Is there any thoughts around this? Any unresolved components? Anything that you're like, yeah, but what about this part? I think that bottom statement is very important. Right? We aren't here to necessarily like give people the answer. That's what motivational interviewing is all about, helping people come to the answer themselves. Because whereas I could say, that's all relative though. Like they're not experiencing your harm. You've suffered a lot more than they have. I also can't say that for sure. They may know people who are suffering just as much as they are. Okay. Awful lot of beliefs here. I see this one come up a lot. One variant of these two, right? And so I do want to take some time. And Kitty, you might be able to speak to this one because I know that this is one that comes up frequently. So say more about this.
Just the relational element. I just, we're taught that in terms of our worth, we need to have 6-figure income, own a house, have a retirement. And then the holy grail of human achievement is to have a life partner that wants to procreate with you and be the same person forever. Like these are the messages we get in our kind of Norman Rockwell upbringing, a lot of us. Most of us are not living that life. We've had very different things than that happen. And that can feel like failure to us. And so when people come to us, they're at really the low point in their life, and it's often so relational, and they've alienated their family members and loved ones because that's a symptom of the gambling. They've needed to borrow money and hide what was really happening, and they're just feeling not loved. And it's been going on for a while, in fact, maybe their entire lives. So to say, I'm not likable, I've been kind of throwing that around. I'm actually a lot more okay with it, that like I know that you guys are my people and we're cool and stuff, and I have a lot of people in my life, but that thought was so pervasive, and it is the loneliness for so many of our people when they come to us and they're like, I don't want to go to GA. I don't feel like they want me there. Those people don't like me. We're not going to have that toxic positivity and be like, oh, just give it a chance, or go to the meeting before the meeting and the meeting after the meeting. The answer to that is, I know, it feels horrible. It's awful. What's that like to sit by yourself and hear other people? And instead of invalidating their experience, well, I like you. Well, yeah, we're paid to like you. They know that, right? Like, let's be real. They have been rejected and rejected, and to expect them in their very depleted state to put themselves out there in a scary place where there's its own language and we don't know what to say, and then maybe you share about a way of gambling or a dollar amount and you get kind of scolded by an old timer, then you feel that rejection sensitivity syndrome. So a lot more of, instead of just saying, let's dispute that, of course you're likable, you just need to go more, to meeting them where they're at and being like, I know, that hurts. Right? Not toxic positivity.
Yeah, thank you. Also, it's something that's coming up, and I'm a little bit of a tangent here, something that's coming up a little bit more recently with regards to CBT is the idea that here we are trying to challenge cognitive distortions, right? We're trying to undo and dispute some of the unwanted beliefs. However, we are now in a society where a lot of people's anxiety and frustration is truly like warranted. What do we do with people? How do we support people who are having legitimate concerns? Because we're not just going to be able to say like, well, can we dispute your social economic standing? You know, can we dispute your poverty? Not really. Well, okay, then can we make an effective change? Guess what? That's really hard to do too, right? Like people are suffering, people are struggling, and these tools, although very, very helpful in certain elements, are not the fix-all. And so sometimes being able to just show up and say, yeah, it is hard, and I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I totally agree with the concept of like not letting your politics show. Like I do believe that. I do believe we are existing in a realm where politics are invading everything, right? And so some people, just based on the way that they behave in session, you're gonna kind of know. We do what we can to minimize that, right? Our job is to not promote any ideologies, but we have our own, and they're gonna be shown, they're gonna be felt. Here's the template. Y'all can like take a picture of it. It's also available at smartrecovery.org. That gives you a full template that you can print off as many times as you want for free, as well as a description of it, an explanation of it, and like a video, which, I mean, I've done so well today, I don't see why you would need that. But this can be a tool that's applied to so many different parts of my day. So we've worked on some quick disputes here. Hey, what are some good reasons to gamble? We talked a little bit about validating it. So let's talk about it. What are some reasons that people gamble? What are good reasons people have for gambling? Recreation, sure. What else?
Well, if you're in financial difficulty, there are really only three ways out of it.
Okay.
You can make money, you can find money, or you can gamble, or you can steal. Four ways.
Yeah, sure.
And the choice, if you're really, really in debt, is which one of those things are you going to try to do?
Sure, right.
Which one works the fastest? Well,
So
winning the lottery is a very fast way to become a billionaire.
So there creates hope for
So
a
we're here.
fast revenue stream, right? Okay, what else?
Social connection.
Social connection, right?
Card players like that.
Going out with your peers, going out with your buds for a weekend at the casino.
That's what it's like on when you see the billboards, they're wearing like James Bond girl dresses and everyone's cheering.
Yeah,
And,
we're seeing the casino.
right? Yeah, no, it's not how I looked.
Bingo and charity.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, there's a lot, that's a big aspect of it as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they do, oh, well, I'm doing it for fun, but, I'll win, but it's all one to charity.
In Oregon, it's kind of this widely known thing that the Oregon lottery revenue goes to supporting schools and forests. Now there's been articles and all of that, but in reality, I hear that a lot. I'm just supporting the forests. My lead guitarist in one of my bands tells me that frequently.
I'm supporting force. I feel like a winner, and I like that. Like
Yeah.
I'm lucky. I'm special.
Okay.
And I can say that my son has used his KEYS money, which is Kentucky education money, which lottery funds, to go to school.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
I see.
It does do good things.
Yeah, I see where the money is actually being used
Yeah.
for something good. So, I mean, that's another reason that,
Yeah.
It kind of alleviates.
Because you can actually see the money at work,
Yeah.
right? Like, yeah,
I'm just using it as an example.
totally. So we've started the process of what's called a cost-benefit analysis. It's basically like a pro-con list, but it applies to both continuing the pattern of behavior and changing the pattern of behavior, right? So for somebody who's gambling, we are first going to identify the benefits to gambling. Then we'll take a look at the costs of gambling, right? Then we're going to circle down a little bit. So it kind of works in a circle. We're going to talk about the negative consequences or the costs of stopping gambling. Because just like there are benefits to gambling, there are going to be consequences to stopping. And if we aren't able to acknowledge them, if we're ignoring those, they're going to come up on their own. So we can either front load it and anticipate those things and try to build some security around that, or we can try to sweep it under the rug and wait for them to come up naturally, right? Now, in this cost-benefit analysis, it can be really beneficial to take a look at people's value systems and highlight ones that are a little bit more weighted towards their values. If it's like financial security is one of their values, it might be helpful to identify that here on this list, right? But what we notice is that the reasons to gamble and the negative consequences to quitting fall within kind of sustainable treatment plans. Because if you're able to identify the reasons that people gamble, you can start to substitute those with other things. It's not about what we aren't going to do, it's about what we're going to do instead. So how do I get a sense of escape? Maybe that's not escape, maybe that's emotional processing, right? Same way that if managing stress, pressure, and anxiety without my favorite vice is a consequence, okay, how do we make a plan for that? How do we work that into a sense of like treatment and program? Someone's recovery journey. No notes. No notes. Okay, so the cost-benefit analysis, and this is just the explanation of what it is. This is another SMART skill, so you can also view this one and download the templates.
We have to end.
Yes, yes. So I'm going to hand it back over to Kitty for the closing statements.
Oh,
but,
okay.
but thank you all. If you're interested in learning more about SMART recovery, skills, tools, things like that, you can come talk to me afterwards.
We just tried to, that was like a 40-hour presentation that we
I feel like we split
squished
into
into
home
3.5.
so well.
This is also one that's in your packet, and you've probably done this, but come up with the 8 ways you spend your time and how satisfying they are, and then make some adjustments. They're not all going to be 10s. If you're early in recovery, you spend a lot of time doing recovery stuff. Hopefully, then that gets more balanced, and you can write your own book or adopt a bunch of dogs or something. So mine are a little different than some people's. Don't assume everyone has spouse, job, you know, there are other things people do. And we went through a lot of the scenarios. There's trends. We do want to talk about this. Do we need to cut for the stream? Okay. So there are a number of trends coming up, everybody. The gamification of gambling and the gamification of gaming. Loot boxes, we keep hearing these statistics, but billions of dollars spent on these little things that kids will gamble on, that they're either going to get something that's worth the cost of a water bottle or a house. You don't know. So you're asking parents for an Apple gift card to put into your game, and it's really starting that wiring in the brain of gambling. I'm more worried about that than scratch-it tickets in holiday gifts. I told you I play Pokemon Go. There's a lot of that. Is it going to be a shiny one that's of value? It's intermittent ratio of reinforcement. There's a lot of loss disguised as win. Oh, wow, I got something. It's one I already had 1 million of, things like that. So they're really overlapping, and they're putting a lot of the microtransactions in it, where I'm just spending a little on a pass to go do an event, but then I need to buy an extra thing to go with it. The marketing is very much a push, and it can be tailored to high-risk groups. Hopefully that's used to identify problem gambling behavior and inform people. But it can also be like, hey, I see you've re-upped your deposits several times, or you're playing at 3 in the morning. We mentioned yesterday that for RD, there's not a mandatory set a time and a budget kind of tool. That's what's actually useful in responsible gambling, are operator tools like that. They don't have to do it, so why should they? Because they need to make profit for their shareholders. We want to encourage our clients and people that are in that 3 to 8% risk rate that don't yet have a severe problem to use those tools or to self-exclude. The online thing, of course, is going to have the accessibility we're worried about. So this is a video of the thing I am absolutely most concerned about. And if you hear people starting to use it, run. It's called Crash or Rocket or Spaceman. And you ante up, and then this X and Y axis, a little rocket starts going up, and you can get out anytime. And so you're like, hey, I put in $1, and now I've made $10. This is feeling good. And I'm God's favorite child. I'm going to say, oh, wow, it's sure going up. You have no idea when that rocket's going to crash, but it does. And it's RNG, it's intermittent, so it could be at $2 or it could be at $100,000. You don't know. And that is so activating that I am constantly hearing that Spaceman, Rocket, Crash, you can play it on your phone. College-age kids, really vulnerable demographic, are losing everything on this game. And the currency is just transfer from your bank account, put it on your credit card. Like, there's lots of ways it doesn't feel like money. So that thing is really, really, really dangerous in the privacy of your home. There's a lot of workarounds that in states that don't have online digital high transactive velocity, like slot machines. They have scratch-it tickets that look like slot machines. And so you buy 500 scratch-it tickets and you scratch them by pressing a button that spins reels. That looks a lot like a slot machine. Ronselyn mentioned yesterday the HHR that just came out in Kentucky, and the lines were around the block in the rain. So those are slot machines that are looking for their data in horse races. So it's actually a sporting event. It's just a slot machine, okay? There's going to be a lot of regulatory stuff trying to catch up, and it's very confusing, but those kind of things that can also be called parimutuel, where it's like we're all gambling together on one bank of machines. They still look just like Vegas line games, okay? Smart watches, you can gamble from your phone connected to your body, so accessibility, but when it's connected to your body, that's even more accessible. I mean, at some point, we're going to be able to just blink and mortgage our house and get a dose of dopamine from having some form of prize, risk, reward, chance. In-game bets in sports, more dangerous than the over-under for the game this weekend. So that's who gets the next touchdown. Also parlays that are combining a bunch of outcomes. People tend to be like, yeah, let's just try it. I got a freebie. And then it turns into those ones and lightning bets and things that are a lot more immediate. But even more so when the signing up for the online sports operator transfers over to the online casino, and it becomes the high transactive velocity. Esports is where you can bet on people that are playing video games, and our Gen Z kids are really into it. There's all kinds of studies where you ask them who their heroes are, and most of them will be people that play like League of Legends. I don't know any of them. Has anyone ever tried virtual reality goggles? Do you have that? The Quest and stuff? What was it like?
It's kind of cool. I haven't played a full game.
Yeah.
But
What do you think? Do you don't like it? So I had it where I could like bang stuff out of the air, and I kind of enjoyed that. Then I figured out there was porn on it and showed it to some friends, and everyone I showed that to was like, I feel like the trajectory in my life just shifted. I've never seen anything like this, and I'm not interested in it, but I can imagine people will find virtual reality porn, which is a process addiction like gambling, and never leave their house again. Like, it feels so real and meets that need of feeling connected and stuff like that. So to combine that with gambling, where you have blackjack dealers that are topless and feeling that sexuality mixed with the risk and the prize, is gonna be a big deal. Virtual sports is, they take like 3 minutes, 4 minutes, about the length of a Keno game, but it's simulated sports, but it's still a gambling thing, and it looks very real. Remember NFTs? That thing there, that orb, I think it sold for like $90 million in 2020. And I mean, really what it is like if you could get the first email that Steve Jobs sent announcing that they'd created the internet or whatever, and record that email in a digital code, that becomes a piece of art. So these are like pieces of art, but they're digital. And it's sort of like Beanie Babies, maybe, like it's worth whatever people pay for it, but it can change a lot. I've fallen into the day trading crypto Ponzi schemes. I told you my ex-husband was my financial barriers person, very conservative. I invested in something called Celsius, which is sort of crypto adjacent, and have lost my life savings in doing that. I didn't feel like I was gambling on crypto. I thought I was making a wise investment to catch up. It's since settled in bankruptcy court, and I got a portion of it back, but it was really hard recovery-wise and very available and activating. Monetizing and targeting folks on social media, that saying, like once they get our address, of like targeting people to sign up now and get free bets. Social casinos, people do the microtransactions, and it's time, it's still a value, but there's been lawsuits with like Big Fish, have you heard about that one? That it's just so much money that people can be invested in. So those are the things we had to present today. We wish we could tell you more. We will hang around if you would like to ask questions individually. And just want to thank the Kentucky Council for allowing us to be here and your thoughtful questions.
Hang on, guys, just a minute. This is from the council.
Yeah, this was, I got it.
From a little gift from the council. I've got just a couple of minutes before we leave. We're almost done. It's been a long morning. Actually, you all didn't know, but the live feed people are actually in this room with you. We had some complications, so you've had a lot of company in here. I thank everybody for their attendance and paying attention and enjoying it. We've had good comments about things so far. I heard a lot of good coming out of this particular session when people were coming out. You will be receiving an email in the next few days with your evaluation. You do need to complete the evaluation, send it back, and that is how you will get your CEUs. One of the things that the council is very interested in is getting more people certified to do gambling addiction counseling. So I want to tell you the first steps of this and the website that you can go to if you're interested. The website is ipggc.org. This is the International Board, but they have reorganized their name, and so it's a different name. It's the International Problem Gambling and Gaming Certification, and then you don't put the B at the end. So ipggc.org. We are hoping to get a counselor certified in every mental health center catchment area in the state of Kentucky. That's our goal. That's not enough, but that's where we're starting with. So in order to achieve a level 1 certification, and you can find all of this on the website, you need to have a bachelor's degree or higher in some kind of a human services related field. There's a 30-hour specific training that you have to have. That's what I mentioned yesterday. We will know more about the offerings of that soon. We've put in the grant request. The state is reviewing, and hopefully we will be able to announce that very soon. We are targeting May, but if there's delays, it will be later in the summer, possibly even the fall. The Experience is 100 hours of working with gamblers and or their families. A lot of people say, how am I going to find 100 hours of gamblers? That's going to be too hard. That's really very easy. Most of your substance abuse, if you are doing a DUI group, talk about gambling one night. Give them one of the assessments. The PGSI is a great assessment. I just did 2 groups this week. I told you yesterday, I had 20 to 22 guys in both of the groups. I found 6, probably 2 or 3 more that didn't identify personally to me. So there I go. I've got people, and I can count that group of doing the training. So it's not that hard. If you work in a jail, or you have connections with a jail, go to their SAT program. So 100 hours of working with gamblers and or their families. You have to have evaluations from 2 coworkers. You have to have an evaluation from your site supervisor. If you're in a private practice, someone that knows you and could suffice as a supervisor. And then you have to have a minimum of 4 hours of supervision from a board-approved clinical consultant, or a BACC. In the state of Kentucky, Dr. Barrett, who's in here, and myself are the only BACCs. You don't have to stay in Kentucky to get that, but we are available. You're not taking anybody now, right?
As soon as I recover, I will.
He might be taking some people soon. I do them online. I have a group right now that's got about 4 people in it from different parts of the state. Your wife's in there. She's met with me for over a year now. She didn't stop at the 4 hours because it's good stuff. There is a cost involved with that. You'll have to contact me personally if you choose me to be your BACC. I do the BACC stuff for the state of Indiana and have been for about 10 years. If you want to go into a level 2, which is the highest level, it's basically the same things, but you go to a 60-hour training to 30 hours, then you get 60 hours total. It's 2,000 hours of working with gamblers and 24 hours of working with the BACC. So it's at least a 2-year process. I'm not asking anybody to even think about level 2. I'm thinking, let's do level 1. If you're interested in the International Gambling Recovery Specialist with peer support, I don't know if you all talked about that, but I do want to point out that it is online and you can see the requirements for that. We are looking towards possible funding with the sports gambling later this year of maybe doing something to really beef up our peer support system for gambling. I don't know that we can get questions to me. I don't think. You all have Mike Stone's email, kmstone1951@gmail.com. I gave you mine yesterday, rclark@therootedrecovery.com. You can go to the KYCPG website. You can find me on there. You can find Mike. Any of our board members would be glad to reach out and answer any questions that you have. Again, thank you for your time and attention the last day and a half. Safe travels, and we'll see you again next conference, hopefully.
Delayed gratification in a lot of ways. That doesn't mean we always need delayed gratification, because I'm sure we can all think about a few things here and there where, when we're being honest, we love instant gratification too, for sure. But if we are struggling with something that feels like it defines our life, you can never wake up in the morning feeling like, I just succeeded at doing something for a year. Right? And if you do, you can only do that one time, like a birthday or an anniversary, right? Then it's over. It's much more rewarding to wake up every morning feeling like, I did it yesterday, and now my goal is to do it today, right? To feel that sense of accomplishment and to rededicate to the motivation of doing it again is a lot more rewarding than torturing yourself for a year to feel good on one morning. One day at a time is a way to reprogram the reward system of the brain to something that removes some of the power that gambling has over us. And that's why it's important to emphasize it in our treatment. Whether we're doing GA or not, I talk about 1 day at a time with my clients all the time. I talk with them about purpose. I encourage them to discuss their higher power, whether it's a deity or whether it's a reason for being alive. GA gives me a lot of the tools that I use in my conversation to pair with motivational interviewing, to pair with my theories that I draw from, to pair with my knowledge about what gambling works and what I believe is true about recovery. And then we make something holistic happen with the client as they are learning how to feel their own existence in life in a way that's not defined by gambling. Okay, everyone, we have made it through a ton of information today. I'm really happy that we were able to make this happen despite the travel difficulties. Thank you so much to my hosts from the Kentucky Council and the IT crew that worked with me to use my streaming history on Twitch and YouTube for good use. You know, they asked me, can we make it look nice for our live and our streaming audience? And I said, I am a Twitch partner. I do this with video games 3 days or more a week, and I think we can. I know we can. Yes, we can. And I'm just really happy that I got to spend the morning with all of you. If you would like to contact me, all of my socials are at Dr. Gameology, and that's Threads, Twitter, Blue Sky, Facebook. You can follow me on YouTube or subscribe on Twitter. I made the brand Dr. Gameology so that people could find me. That was my #1 goal. So I'm really excited for all of you to be able to do that. And if you are interested in joining the KindBridge network of treatment providers, I'm also very happy to facilitate that and get you some more clients with the W2 treatment relationship as well. So there's me a little bit. You can find my website, drgameology.com, also content on kindbridge.com. And I'm just so excited to hear from all of you. I hope you enjoyed your morning. And as I always do when I close out, always remember to continue the journey and find that path to growth that you can enjoy yourself and pass on to your clients. Thank you so much.
Okay, we're about to the end of a day and a half of learning a lot of different things. I want to thank you for your time and attendance, and I apologize for the mess up with the feed this morning. All of these have been recorded and will be available on the KYCPG website pretty soon. Give them a couple of weeks, but I know Dr. Kaufmann had a lot of good information that we missed out on. Well, you guys got more of it than the ones at home did. You will receive your evaluation from the council probably early next week. You'll get something from Mike. So fill out that evaluation, send it in. Don't forget to send it in, because that is how you will get your CEUs. And we inevitably run out of people, and you've only got a 2-week window to get it, and it's 3 weeks away, and I never saw the email and I didn't get it. But it will come to you early next week. One of the goals of the Kentucky Council is to have a person in every mental health center catchment area across the state to become certified. So here is my push, ask, beg. If you are interested in becoming a certified gambling counselor, here's the steps to do this. And you can always contact the counselor, you can contact me, and we can walk you through the steps. Their website, to tell you what I'm going to tell you, is ipggc.org, International Problem Gambling and Gaming Certification, ipggc.org. There are 2 levels of certification. We're just really going to concentrate on level 1 to begin with. And this is for someone who has a bachelor's degree or higher in a human services related field. You must take the 30-hour specific training. This is what I mentioned yesterday. We will have that training announcement. We are hoping next week so we can get it in May. If not, it will probably be early fall, but we will have that. There are other states that have it as well. If you're in a hurry to get this, you can go on and take theirs. I know Indiana has a training program, and I don't know the cost that it would be for different people in Indiana. The second thing you have to have is 100 hours of clinical experience in a board-approved setting. I have people constantly, how am I going to get 100 hours of working with gamblers? I don't think I have any gamblers in my office. If you're doing a DUI group, if you're doing an adolescent group, if you're doing a drug and alcohol group, if you're doing an almost any kind of group, you've probably got a gambler in there. You've seen the prevalence rates. What this means is go in there and do a little PowerPoint explaining what gambling is. Use some of the materials you got today. I have one already made up. It's about 15 slides. And then I give them the PGSI, and that's how I identify some gamblers. So you've gone in there and you've got, like I said this week, I had 20 or 22 guys in 2 different groups. That's starting counting my hours. I've identified 6, probably more than that in there. There goes some more hours. They will add up quickly. It's not hard to do. If you are where you can go into a SAP program in a jail, do that. You will have to have evaluations from 2 coworkers. You'll have to have an evaluation from a supervisor. If you're in a private practice, this can be a coworker that has seen you, that it's not necessarily has to be your supervisor. You will have to have a minimum of 4 hours with a BACC. In the state of Kentucky, I'm the only BACC. And I do supervision groups twice a month on Friday mornings from 8 until 8:40 via Zoom. Donna, sitting here with us, has been in my group for about a year, a little over a year. She went way beyond her 4 hours because it's good to have that group feedback. It helps a lot. Helps me. I also do group supervision for the state of Indiana one Friday a month. The cost for this is $70. Most of the time your agencies will pay for it, $70 a session. So if you're interested in that, you can contact me. You don't have to go with the Kentucky BACC. You can get one from another state. I'm not saying you have to see me. It might be somebody else.
This part of Kentucky, if you go on that meeting, it's gonna be at 9.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's 9 Eastern, 8 Central.
First. So,
And if we needed to adjust the time for some reasons, we can do that. But I require, because the sessions are 40 minutes, I require 6 before I'll sign your BACC form. And then you'll take an exam. Donna's taken it, and it's not horrible. If you want to go for a level 2, I'm just briefly going to mention that. That is 60 hours of training, and you have to have 2,000 hours of working with gamblers or their families. And 24 hours with the BACC. So let's just concentrate right now on level 1, and I hope some people are inspired to go and do this. There are also instructions on the site, what did I say it was? IPGGC, I'm not used to saying those letters, I'm used to the old way. But there are instructions on that site for what to do to become a peer recovery specialist. You also would have to have a BACC. And there are people, I did this same little speech in the room next door, and I know there were people that were interested over there. They have to have 8 hours with a BACC, which I probably would do a little bit of a different group. But anyway, any questions about the certification levels? I think with us getting sports gambling, the increases we're seeing, this is just, we need more counselors in the state. It's embarrassing to say we have 6 in a gambling state. Thank you again for your time and your attention. I hope you have safe travels home, and I hope to see you all soon, maybe in the 30-hour training if you haven't been there yet. Thank you.
And that is a good training.
It is a good training.